Welcome back into Yellowhammer Radio with Cliff Sims. We got to switch gears here real quick from the federal politics with Scott Walker's presidential announcement, and now switch gears, come down to Alabama state politics. We are joined now by Senate President Pro Tem Del Marsh. Senator Marsh, how you doing today?
Cliff, I'm fine, thank you.
Well, I wanted to get you on and talk to you a little bit about the special session Governor Bentley has called you guys into down there in Montgomery. And this was a surprise to a lot of folks. Now, we knew we were headed for a special session after the governor vetoed the budget that you guys passed earlier in the regular session this year. But we're surprised, I think all of us were, it sounds like you guys were as well, about the timing of this. Talk us through the surprise when you found out that you were being called into this special session.
Yeah, Cliff, the surprise was that, of course, myself and the speaker, we've been in touch with the governor, had meetings with the governor, and we all knew we were coming back for the special. Myself, I have assigned several of my colleagues in the Senate that have been working toward a solution in the general fund. The speaker has done the same with his colleagues. We've had meetings on the Senate side. In fact, we have another meeting scheduled for tomorrow that was scheduled before the special was called, to allow these individuals to continue to look at information and come up with something they feel that we get enough votes on to pass for the general fund. And we had everything laid out to be finished in the August 7th time frame in order for the special, which we thought had been agreed upon in the middle of August. And so today, and I want your listeners to understand, when we come in today, we will adjourn until a day early August. And the reason is to allow the work we're doing to continue. We've got a timeline that's working. We're making progress. The worst thing we could do is come down and jump into a special session and not allow these people to continue the work with the data they've received, and it could be chaos. So the fact that we're going to adjourn to a date certain later is only to give us a chance to stay in our schedule and accomplish our goal to get a general fund budget that we can get passed and signed by the governor.
Now, to kind of remind folks, our listeners, of exactly what the issue is, Alabama, one of only 3 states in the country that has 2 separate budgets. So you have the education budget on one side, you have the general fund budget that basically funds all of non-education related programs, et cetera. The general fund budget facing somewhere in the neighborhood of $200-ish million shortfall. Now, you guys during this regular session passed a budget that balanced relying solely on cuts. And if I remember correctly, that was 9% across most government agencies, 5% in Medicaid, mental health, and a couple of others, prisons, I believe. The governor didn't like that. He's pushing for his tax increases and trying to get more government revenue. And so that brings us to the point we are now. The governor vetoes that budget and now calls you guys into the special session. Fiscal year ends, if I remember correctly, at the end of September. So we've got to have a budget. And the governor is saying now that he feels like he has built consensus among lawmakers to go along with his plan. Is that true? Do you feel like the governor actually does have the support for now for what he is trying to do? What is your sense talking to your members?
I do not. And let me tell you this, Cliff, and one thing we've been studying since we got out, and we have some numbers to back it up now, is that Alabama has not been in a recovery mode since 2008. As it had a real estate crisis, we've only had a 0.7% GDP growth. And if we had what others surrounding states have even experienced, we'd have $100 to $200 million more dollars. Now, it probably would have been in the education trust fund, but the money would have been there.
Sure.
So if those are the facts, which they are, you do not tax your way out of a recession.
That's right.
And so what we want to be able to do is show these facts to all our members, say, hey, we've got to stimulate this economy. And here's how we do it. We're looking at some very progressive ways we look at how we tax in this state. We're looking at moving the use tax out of education into the general fund to give them a growth tax. We're looking at the business privilege tax, shift it to where the small guys out there have less burden because we want to encourage small business growth. That's where most of our growth comes from. We've got a host of things we're doing, but they do not include a soft drink tax or even a cigarette tax. Because we believe we can get where we need to be and set the stage for strong economic growth going forward if we do it right. So that's the direction we're going, and we will have a chance to share this with the governor, would have, had we stayed in our original time schedule. But now we'll just have to accelerate that. Would have been ready by the 7th. We think we can be ready by the 3rd, gives us plenty of time. We come in on the 3rd. We still have plenty of legislative days to pass a budget. So, we're on schedule. We'll be fine, but we're staying on our schedule.
Now, the governor's stated reason, I'm not sure if he said this publicly, but some of the folks close to him have told me that his reasoning was that he felt like that if he did not call the special session now, that gambling interests would be able to ramp it up and really start to get support for their gambling proposals, one of which is a gambling proposal that you had kind of put out there. What is your sense right now of where your caucus or the folks down in the House are on gambling? Do you feel like that there will be a gaming component potentially to the solution?
Well, let me say this. I do not think gaming is a solution to the general fund, okay. Period. What I do believe is that gaming is an industry that we are not receiving fair revenue from in the state. I could care less if we have it or we don't, but if we're going to have it, we should get our revenue. And it's just like I make an analogy, the oil wells off the coast. We receive revenue for those wells. They're there, we should receive it. The gaming facilities are here, we should be receiving it. So, I'm not going to, I think gaming should be a conversation in the economic incentive and development conversation, not solving the general fund conversation. The general fund or the solution that we will propose in August will not have gaming as the savior for the general fund. But I do think gaming should be an issue we should be discussing and let the people of the state at some time make a decision on whether we're going to have it or whether we're not.
You referenced oil wells off the coast, and that reminds me of the BP settlement money that the state has recently learned that we will get somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.3 billion, something like that. I saw Senate General Fund Budget Chairman Arthur Orr say that he feels like the money, about $200 million, something like that, if I remember correctly, of that should be used to pay off debts. What do you think about that money coming in from BP? What should it be used for?
I've talked to Senator Orr, I've talked to the Speaker and other leadership, and we're all on the same page on this one. We believe that money should be used to reduce all the debt of the state. We have probably, if you add it all up, around $700 million. Now, the way that money will come down, there'll be initial payment, the way I understand it, of about $200 million, and then about 2 years of lag before the rest of it starts coming in at around 50-something million a year. I personally think, and I think we should look at this in the special, is passing some statute that obligates a percentage of those dollars to the debt until it's paid, and leaving the rest, whatever's left, which is one-time money, to go into one of the funds, gain interest, and benefit the general fund. Those are the things we're looking at. How that will turn out, I don't know, but I can tell you in terms of the debt, that is a priority in the leadership and from both the House and the Senate.
What would you say to folks down in South Alabama who are starting to express some frustrations? We had Congressman Byrne on the program late last week expressing some frustrations that while Mobile and Baldwin counties took the brunt of both the economic and environmental impact of the BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill, that they're not ultimately going to be the ones that end up getting the vast majority of that money. What would you say to those folks down in South Alabama?
I think they're doing what they have to. They're playing politics and their local politics. I mean, they have gotten a tremendous amount of money already. You know that, Cliff.
Sure. They've
got a tremendous amount of money. And I would question how big this environmental impact was. Now, there was an economic impact, and it was unfortunate,
right,
due to the way the media blew this out of proportion. But I mean, the fact that they have not received a fair share, I think, is not it's not genuine, and that we have to look at, okay, we all benefit, everybody benefits, including South Alabama, if we reduce and pay off debt.
Sure. Well, I want to kind of step back a little bit, and I know we're kind of in the moment here. We're trying to solve the crisis that is in front of us. But I was thinking through kind of how all of this has played out, and thought back a few years ago to when.
Hey, Cliff,
yes, sir.
This isn't a crisis; it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity.
You know what? You're right, and I've been trying to catch myself using the word crisis because, frankly, I like the budget y'all did pass. I mean,
this isn't a crisis.
Yeah.
They want to make it a crisis.
That's right.
We will pass a budget. We will do it, I think, in a very fiscally responsible way, not too much money, enough to keep the pressure to downsize these government agencies.
Yeah.
And find a way to have a sustainable growth for those budgets going forward. I'm very positive about
Yeah.
where we are right now.
No, I'm glad that you caught me on that, because it is even I fall into that trap sometimes, that they want to create this sense that there's a crisis. And frankly, the budget that y'all passed with the cuts, I'm a little bit confused at why conservatives are all wringing their hands in the legislature about it, when it's like, when's the last time a Republican, a conservative, got beat for cutting government? Isn't that like what you're supposed to do?
I'm amazed at how many of my conservative friends are talking about raising taxes.
Yeah.
But anyway.
All right. Well, I'm glad you caught me on that. But I do want to take a little bit of a step back and think back to a few years ago when, a lot of the one-time money that has flowed in from Washington, D.C. over the years, it had finally run out, and we're kind of faced with, what are we going to do here? And the legislature made the decision, along with the governor, he promoted it as well, to borrow some money from the trust fund to patch that hole. And now, a few years later, here we are, and we're having to try to address this problem again. If you had it to do all over again, do you think perhaps we would have started a little bit earlier in doing the research and knowing that this day was coming a couple of years down the road? Do you feel like that maybe we would have started a little bit earlier in this process?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, let's face it. This BP money is a gift. I mean, none of us had planned on that.
Yeah.
A lot of things we can't plan on; they just happen. Yeah, we probably should have perhaps made some adjustments earlier. Although, we've been pretty tight budgeted for the last several years. I don't know there was a whole lot difference we could have done, but what is important now is that as we have this one-time money, we know it. I mean, it's there. We know what's coming. Don't let this opportunity escape us, and let's go ahead and get this debt paid off.
All right, I got one more question. We're talking to State Senator Del Marsh here. What happens if you guys continue refusing to put a deal together that the governor decides he likes, so he continues vetoing whatever you do, calling you back into another special session? And he has said before, he said earlier this year, if it takes 10 special sessions to get what I want, I'll call 10 special sessions. What happens as we approach the end of the fiscal year? What if there's not a budget in place?
Well, of course, there's more pressure the closer you get to October. There's no doubt. But there again, Cliff, I think we're close. I mean, based on what I've seen with the study groups, I think we're close to a solution. Now, it may not be a solution the governor likes, but at some point, the governor's got to ask himself, how much does he want to push this issue?
Mm-hmm.
He's not running for re-election. Okay, you got a lot of those folks in the Senate and the House that are, and the governor can, talk. I respect the governor, but it's a lot easier to talk about some of the things he's talked about when you're not running for re-election.
Right.
And I think that at the end of the day, these guys are going to hold firm and do what's right, and that is not put this economy, which is stressed at best, subject to more taxes, which is going to slow it down.
Yeah. Well, Senator, we'll be keeping a close eye on what you guys do down there. Best of luck over the next few weeks as y'all work through this, and hope we can have you back on the program here soon.
Always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, Senator.
Thanks.
That's Senator Del Marsh working through this budget, the budgeting issues down there in Montgomery. We're going to take a quick break and come back and maybe get to some phone calls. If you want to weigh in, 866-551-9933. Cliff Sims, Yellowhammer Radio. I'll be back in a minute.
This is Yellowhammer Radio with Cliff.